Hello everyone, welcome back to Fastcuts. Wire walkers, the daredevils who used to entertain and shock the public back in the day. The Walk is the story of French wire walker Philippe Petit. This movie focuses on his mind-blowing attempt at wire walking across the Twin Towers in 1974. The movie begins by introducing Philippe Petit, a street performer who never failed to shock and amaze the audience with his skills, but we get to know shortly that he has been doing this without any legal authorization. This often got him in trouble. One day, one of the spectators gave him a ball-shaped candy instead of money. Philippe took the candy and performed tricks with it, but shortly he damages his teeth by accidentally biting it too hard. This results in him visiting the dentist. While going through the magazines and newspapers, a news article grabs hold of his attention, so intriguing that he forgets about his pain. It was about an unfinished Trade Center Twin Towers which were set to become the world's tallest building. Philippe was so excited to see this, he tears the page off the magazine and stuffs it in his pocket. Then we see Philippe planning on a wire walking across, as he draws a line across the picture of the Twin Towers. Then we get to see the flashback on how and why Philippe is so much passionate about wire walking. This dates back to when he was an 8-year-old kid. For the first time in his life he saw a man wire walking across the circus hall. Philippe was mind blown by this. He could not figure out how that person managed to balance on the wire, which resulted in him staring at the wire for a long time. From the very next day, Philippe decided to learn to master this skill. He never failed to practice daily, and as he got older, and the days went by, Philippe took down ropes one by one, and soon he was down to walking on just one rope. He got really good in it, but he was not sure if he was capable of wire walking big heights. To overcome this self-doubt, Philippe sneaked into the circus hall and tries to walk the wire. As he was about to take his first step, someone from below yells at him and asks him to get down. He was an old man named Papa Rudy, who happens to be the head of the circus. As he got down, Philippe proceeds to impress him by showing off his skills, and as he does this, Papa Rudy decides to take him under his team. Papa Rudy invites Philippe to his house to teach him how to appear before the audience and grab their attention by respecting and appealing. Philippe gets offended by this and tells him he is an artist and not a circus clown. Papa Rudy does not like his attitude and ends up kicking him out. This gets Philippe so stressed and arrogant that he decides to leave his family, his house, and his dreams behind. This sums up how he ended up in Paris. One day, as he was searching for a place to perform, he sees a girl named Annie performing with a guitar on the street. He decides to perform at the same place then and there. Gradually she starts to lose her audience, ending up with 0 people to watch her perform. After the act, Annie confronts Philippe about this, and he defends himself by stating that he was just looking to share with the audience. Suddenly, it starts to rain. He grabs hold of a restaurant umbrella and walks along with Annie, and asks her out for a drink, by promising he will never perform anywhere near her. While they have their drinks together, Philippe shares his dream of wire walking across the tallest Twin Tower. This gets their conversation interesting, leading to them both opening up more and eventually falling in love. Annie wanted to help him get better. She invited him to her art school. Philippe starts to wire walk at a much taller height. One day a photographer named Jean-Louis asked Philippe if he could photograph him. He lets him and tells him about his dream of wire walking between the Twin Towers. Jean-Louis gets astonished by his extraordinary ambition. Philippe further tells him that he can be his official photographer. As they converse further, the ropes get loose and he falls to the ground. Jean-Louis proceeds to remind him that, if this happens during his performance at the Twin Towers, it will end his life. As he gets hit by reality, he goes back to Papa Rudy to take advice on tying rope. He starts to offer money to teach him everything he knows about wire walking. Papa Rudy accepts this offer and teaches him to tie ropes, and also made him join him on shows as a helper. He wasn't allowed to perform on the show, but when the show was over, he was allowed to practice on the wire. Papa Rudy gets impressed by his determination. He lets him perform on a town festival show. Philippe starts to wire walk over a lake, but as he progresses, some fishermen in the lake start to ruin his concentration, which results in Philippe losing his balance and falling into the lake before every people at the festival, Jean-Louis, Anne, and Papa Rudy. This embarrassment fueled him to master his skills and decides to take on the challenge of wire walking between the towers of Notre Dame. Philippe, with the help of Jean-Louis, sneaks inside the cathedral and ties steel walk ropes in between the two towers. As he performs, many tourists get to witness this act, and he completes the walk. He was celebrated among the people, but since it was illegal to trespass and perform such dangerous acts, he gets immediately caught by the police and gets labeled a vandal by the news. But Felipe notices the picture of the Twin Towers on the same page and takes it as a sign of his destiny of wire walking between the Twin Towers. Annie and Felipe decide to travel to New York and witness the towers together in person. As he checks around the building, he gets frightened about how it is impossible to tie wires across due to the height of the buildings. But then, he sneaks in through the construction elevator and makes it to the deck above that was under construction. He proceeds to walk over the side rails to get a trial experience on his attempt. This pumps his confidence. He then returns to France and starts laying down plans on how he will fulfill this act. Both Jean and Louis agree to be with him, but they raise their concern about installing the wires since it is above 1369 feet from the ground and it's ensuring the wires' sturdiness. He then goes back to Papa Rudy, and he instructs him on how he should be installing the wires and asks him to use a safety harness since he was concerned about his life. But Felipe refuses the idea and argues it'll defeat the whole purpose. After they discuss this, Papa Rudy finally gives his support and all his money back to fund his act. Determined, Felipe begins practicing maneuvering strong winds that he'll encounter on the Twin Towers. Jean-Louis then introduces him to a person named Jeff, who wants to be an accomplice. Being a mathematician, Jeff helps him with crucial calculations. Then Jean-Louis demonstrates how they will get the ropes in the towers with the help of archery. Everything went according to plan until now. He marks August 6, 1974, as the date when he'll perform. He then flies back to New York with the rest of them to learn more about the building, taking out necessary measurements. Felipe disguises himself every day as a worker to get around. One day, to get accurate measurements of the distance and length, Felipe disguised as a reporter from France to inquire directly to the people in charge of its construction. One day, while walking around the construction site, Felipe steps on a nail that impales his feet. This results in him not being able to walk for a few days. But this doesn't affect Felipe's determination, and he returns to the towers the very next day on crutches, taking every bit of information that he can use. Then one day, he meets up with a person from France who recognizes him as the wire walker. He introduces himself as Barry, and he works on the 87th floor of the North Tower. Since he needed more help, he invites him to dinner and tells him everything about his plan. After knowing how determined Felipe was, Barry agrees to help Felipe by giving him access to the North Tower roof. As the team requires constant communication throughout the operation, they need a walkie-talkie. And for that, Jean-Pierre helps them with wired radio. He also introduced him to two new accomplices, Albert and David, who will help him tie the wires. With the whole team assembled and the plan laid out, Felipe is just one day away from reaching his dream. That night, he has trouble falling asleep. He gets up from his bed and starts nailing the crate with his walk wires, thinking of it as his coffin. The next day, Felipe and his team drive to the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. With the help of Barry, Albert and Jean-Louis, get access to the North Town along with their equipment. Felipe kisses Anne and gets into a delivery van with the rest of his team to get into the South Tower. Disguising themselves as delivery workers, they get into an elevator that takes them to the 110th floor. While unloading the walking wires, they hear security guards approaching. David immediately flees out of fear of getting caught by them. Felipe and Jeff hide under a tarp that was covering an elevator shaft. The two men hang on to their dear lives as they wait for the guards to leave. After hours of waiting, Felipe starts to hallucinate, but shortly he comes back to his senses and then sees that the guards have left. They carry the walking cables to the top floor. Then he proceeds to shoot the arrow that will connect the cables to the two towers. Jean-Louis shoots the arrow, but Felipe doesn't find it. As he searches for the arrow, he finally sees it hanging over the side of the roof. Just as it begins to fall, he manages to catch hold of it. At first, they connect a wired radio and communicate with each other, then they begin to lay the wires between the South and North Towers. It's almost morning, and they still haven't finished trigging the wires. Albert on the North Tower fears getting caught and quits on it. Jean-Louis informs him that Albert has also brought a camera with him, and plans to sell pictures of everything that they have been doing. Even after hearing this, Felipe still believes he can pull this off before sunrise, and continues the work on his side, while Jean-Louis does his from the other side. As they finish setting up the wires, a suspicious man walks up to the roof and gives a nod of approval. As Felipe narrates this story, he calls him the mysterious man since he hasn't seen him ever since. While putting his costume on, he loses a part of it to the ground. He gets angry for losing it just before his greatest performance. After he looks at Jean-Louis, he regains his confidence and decides to do it. As the sun rose in the sky, he grabbed his balancing pole and starts walking on the wire. Each step meant the world to him, and starts to grab everyone's attention from below to Philippe. After breaking midway, he gets confident and smiles. He soon gets to the North Tower and completes the breathtaking stunt. The audience from below applauded him. But as he achieved his dream, Philippe feels like something is absent. He felt that the other tower was calling to him. So he decides to walk back to the South Tower. This time he was more confident in his steps. He was so confident that he even kneeled on the wire at some point. As he was about to reach the South Tower, 2 policemen arrive, ready to arrest him as he steps out. But Philippe decides to turn back and walk back to the North Tower. He decides to break the most crucial role of wire walking. Philippe looks down at the audience and enjoys every moment. Soon many policemen arrive at the end of both towers. But Philippe did not pay any attention, even though the police tried to talk him out of the act. He starts to perform all kinds of tricks over the wire. Even a helicopter is sent to have him stop his act. Philippe gets back to the South Tower and decides to end the performance. He steps off and surrenders to the police. The huge crowd watching him applauds his astonishing performance, and his friends breathe a sigh of relief. As he gets taken down by the police, people including the construction workers applauded him. Even though he was arrested, the police were also amazed by his accomplishment. The news of his act spread like wildfire all over the world, which brought tears to Papa Rudy's eyes. After Philippe got out of police custody, he celebrated with his friends. He thanked everyone for believing and not giving up on him. After quite a while, Anne decides to go back to France and follow her own dreams. For his incredible achievement, he was awarded a lifetime entry pass to the observation deck of the towers, which he visited many times in his life. And as he shows the pass to the audience, the smile fades from his face. The movie ends with a beautiful shot of the towers. Thank you so much for watching. How did you feel about this movie? Tell us down in the comments, and before you leave, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more movie explanations. Until then, bye.